Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. You're all afraid. Just some of you can overcome the fear easier. You're afraid of the unknown. You know, you ask, when I talked to Raymond last night before he left, I said, how many times were you asked, what do I do first? He says, I can't count. I can't count the number. There's only 25 of you. From the 18-year-old, if you were 18, what would you do? To the middle-aged guys that can't get it up anymore, the same question. If you came here not knowing how to start first, you wasted your money. Most of you wasted your money anyway. I told you at the beginning, you got to get your head screwed on straight. Now that means different things to different people. Or as that same asshole E8, you got to unfuck yourself, Peña. You got to unfuck yourself. Now, I'm not sure, he was an illiterate from Alabama. And he used to say, he's long dead now, but he used to say, in the Army, when you're going through training, the spirit of the bayonet was to kill. The spirit of the bayonet. I don't know if they got the spirit of the bayonet anymore or whether it's to kill. But he used to say, and he was a decorated guy from the Korean War and the Vietnam War, and he said that when you and he's talking about Vietnamese little guys, when you stick the little gooks in the chest, it's very difficult to get them off. It's like you got a shrimp on the end of the bayonet. It's very fucking difficult to get the little cocksuckers off your bayonet. I don't know if they talk that way. I rather doubt they talk that way anymore. And it was his job to make you afraid. It was his job and to put the fear in your heart. And you were more afraid of them than you were, and virtually everybody in my era went to Vietnam. But there's nothing here that's going to kill you. Contrary to what you might think, cold calling doesn't kill you. We have slides the last day about Moses roaming through the desert for 40 years because he was looking for a banker to return his call. Of course, that's not true, but that's how you make it sound. And for those of you that have already started the program incorrectly, there's nobody in this room that has started the program correctly. That's either whether you went to the seminar before or you didn't go to the seminar before. Not one single person in here. There hasn't been one person in here that has done it correctly, including Gabriel, the Austrian kid. But he made it effective enough where he got results. Remember, he did 14 LOIs and they collapsed. I would just like to see you have 14 LOIs and they collapse. You would be suicidal. I already told you that roughly a third of you, if you really work the program, are going to be on the verge of going to the hospital because your immune system can't take it. But we haven't had anybody like that in a long time. The last guy that went to the hospital because his system broke down was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, a bomb guy from the Navy, and they pronounced him dead. His system shut down. And he was in good shape. At that time, he was about 35 years old. But you're not going to do that. It's like when men get a cold, it's called man flu, and they stop doing anything. A woman gets a cold, she just keeps working. Nobody in this room is going to get sick. Because nobody in this room is going to come out of at this stage. I'm not saying hope is not a strategy, but hope springs eternal that by the time, the end of the week, that I flip you. Nobody's in this room is going to be the equivalent of jumping off that tower like that actor guy did. Not going to happen. How can I say that? Because I've got 29 years and 11 months and 2 weeks of this. And nobody has before, so I don't assume, unless by some quirk of Allah, somebody in here is going to do it. So what we do is we do the best we can, and that's not a good strategy either, the best we can based on experience and data to get you the closest. Remember, you're 5% of me, you're a billionaire. 5%. We haven't had any 5% of me's I won't say ever. That would be a Trump exaggeration, but hardly ever. We have guys and gals that make a lot of money. They make a lot of sacrifices based on your previous lifestyles, but they're not really sacrifices. Nobody here is going to go without sleep for 3 or 4 days doing this. It's just not going to happen. So, whereas you have Raymond, who is here, and I'm thankful for him coming on his own nickel, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the reasons Raymond took so long is because he's a control freak. He's got to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. And I wasn't lying when I said 95% of the things that he went over with you, I have never done in 52 years. 52 fucking years I've been at this. Some of the things he talks about, I remember somebody in 1988 telling me about it, one of my lawyers, but I never did it. And here I am, and there you are. And one of the reasons, and he'll say it himself, is because he's afraid of the unknown. So it's easier for him. You've heard the saying, if I want it done right, I got to do it myself. We've all heard that. Well, that's wrong. That's not this model. It's the antithesis of this model. I delegate every single thing in my life except wiping my ass. And when I'm in Asia, I don't wipe my own ass. Everything I delegate. I do not do anything. As the staff around here, and Kat is smiling, the staff around here, and the other businesses I'm involved in, would tell you, the old man, the chairman, or whatever they call me, doesn't do dick. The only thing I do is when the dam is cracking and the little Dutch boy is trying to put his thumbs and fingers in to seal up the dam, I know how to do that better than anybody. I step into the breach, just as when your chairman or your board, for those of you that have already gone through this, what value does this fucking skinny little shit bring to the table? Your chairman's supposed to stand up and say, end of that discussion. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him or her. Or they throw you out. So we show that for the first time. There'll be other people that talk in detail, but the people that you're going to hear from this point forward, I won't say they talk about no detail, but they're not involved in any detail, and so therefore they don't discuss it. And the people that take the 12 and 13 years, which are both Germanic, one from Austria and one from Germany, crossed the T's and dotted every I and read every document. I told you when I was up for trial for my life in Houston 30 years ago, I allegedly signed 11,000 documents as CEO of a public company for 10 years. I know they produced my signature, but if I signed 100 documents, I'd be surprised. Now, I'm not saying that those documents are invalid, but I sure as fuck didn't sign anything 11,000 times. I had 5 or 6 people. We had 4 very bright guys on the board that were lawyers, and I delegated. And of course, those same guys threw me out 9.5 years later. And they were world-class guys, like you should have, people you don't have to explain about, but you're not going to have time to do all that shit. Do you think Gabriel knows what he's signing? He doesn't have a fucking clue. And when he talks again later in the week, on his 27th birthday, he'll tell you. He'll tell you. So you're not supposed to know all that. I told you to look at some programs on succession and billionaire, I think, billions, right? Before we talk about the program that you saw last night, what are your takeaways? Anybody speak up about succession and or billions? Your choice. Yes, sir.
For succession, if you're even an ounce of an emotional risk, you would be weeded out right away.
Even if it's your family. Yes, sir, in the back.
He fired his lawyer after 30 years, most probably because he didn't say that his kid was doing shit.
Well, I mean, he's not the only guy that I've seen. I've seen Mothers fire sons. See, you see it in the movies. I've seen it in reality. What else? Yes, sir.
In succession, there's always a problem. Like the company's always going through problems. One solved and then another one pops up.
When I get an email from somebody after they've been here 10, 15 years ago and everything's running smoothly, I know they're fucked. I don't return it because I don't answer many of these, but I get a lot of correspondence and emails and stuff like that. But normally I say, keep pushing. Don't give up. No, don't give up, keep pushing. Signed, Dan. That's it. That's my only advice to you. So don't bother writing me. What else about succession or billions? Oh, yes, sir.
They all had ruthless focus.
Just like you, kid, right? And what you call ruthless, some of the people you're going to hear now the rest of the week say that in different ways, I try to get as ruthless as Dan. Even the most ruthless of the ones that you're going to hear is not even a reasonable facsimile. What you consider ruthless and what I know is ruthless. One of the current billionaire guys, moguls that you look up to, told me about 35 years ago. You would have been the first trillionaire on the planet if you had been in IT, which is probably true, but you're not tough enough, Dan. Let's just say that he was right. If I'm not tough enough, where does that put you? It's a tough world out there. If you want to get in the stratosphere like that thing that I jumped from, and Helmsworth or whatever his name is, not many people will do that. Not many people will do that. And we photoshopped my jump because I didn't land on my feet. I landed on my head and neck. And you can't do that because the way you're cinched up, I did. And so for posterity, we decided to not have the film show that. So after I got up, then I jumped up in the air and landed on my feet, but I didn't land on my feet. I've been uncoordinated my whole life. They used to make fun of me in the military, and nobody can make fun of you like the military can. And the higher I got up the food chain, uncoordination didn't go away, just because I, became an officer. And I'd go through these special schools, and I could barely make it because I'd fall down or I'd fallen out of trees, all kind of shit I could tell you because I'm uncoordinated. I'm uncoordinated. What else about billions of succession? Yes, sir.
People deal with pressure in different ways. Roman had to jerk off because he was so stressed, and Kendall had to take drugs, etc.
And when he's trying to fire the lawyer after he sends her pictures on his cell phone of him jacking off, I hope you're bright enough to understand that this is something you shouldn't do, but there are people like that think because they're the head of companies. Now, more and more of them are getting thrown out because women and whistleblowers, I think is the right word that they use, are ratting them out. But when I was growing up in investment banking, if you ratted somebody out, your career is over forever. So you have to think very carefully whether just because he grabbed you by the snatch, if you're a woman, or bit your tit, or grabbed you by your dick, if you're a guy, you were so affronted that you wanted to ruin your career. And in my day, not many ruined their careers. I've been raped, me, Dan Peña. Every once in a while when I have too much to drink and I tell Sally, I'm going to go to CNN. Only one of the 3 girls that raped me is still alive. But I just closed my eyes and pretended I was someplace else. I didn't fight too hard after the first 4 or 5 seconds. Guys get raped too. I'm not demeaning women that get raped. I'm not saying that. Can you imagine if I went to CNN? More about succession and billions. That is as close, those two programs are as close to the real world as anything on TV. And it's still worse than that. I know Brian Cox, great actor. He tried to rent this castle for his 65th birthday. That's a whole other story, which I don't want to embarrass him to tell on YouTube. And I met him by accident at the Edinburgh airport years ago. Or was it Aberdeen airport? I forget which one. All those people are 5'4", 5'5". The one guy that looks tall, he looks like he's 5'11". They're all midgets, and they have to hire midgets to be in the supporting roles for Mr. Cox, because he's a dwarf. A great program. And billions, I like more than Succession, but and we have a number of guys and gals that are in there doing exactly that. And they're more prepared, and didn't take them 25, 30 years to get there. They got there in 25, 30, 40 months. Some guys that I've trained are on their 5th and 6th wife. Some gals I trained are on their 2nd and 3rd husband. We have a 60%, and we stopped counting at 60%, divorce rate, either divorce, a couple, and they call them partners. I don't like that, but anyway, divorce and divorce level at their business relationship, over 60%. It's close to 70% now. 70%. I read you that email from one of the guys who is divorcing his business partner and divorcing his wife at the same time. And that's not easy. Even if you're tough, it's not easy. But I mean, unless he steps on his dick, which most of you do, but unless he steps on his dick, he's on his way to being a billionaire. And he's Canadian on top of it, which are weak cunts. But he sacrificed everything. See, when I say I sacrifice everything, my God, see, those are just words to you. The old man just flapping his lips. But I did. Well, if there's nothing else about billions or the Succession, you saw the backward bicycle the night before last. I haven't forgotten it. We used to have that bicycle here. I've never seen a white, yellow, or purple man ride that motherfucker. I tried a gazillion times, and I couldn't. That's my job, rewiring you to ride the backward bicycle. We used to have it here, but I mean, you guys would get up in the middle of the fucking night to go try it. Nobody. I've seen one person ride it. He's a 7-year-old kid, and he's the son of a very senior executive from Switzerland. And he came and he rode it in about 10 seconds. But he's the only person I've ever seen, other than on a film, that was in personally. That's my job. That's my task. Is to get the Romanian thief over here to ride the backward bicycle. And to step away from all the DNA of stealing in Romania, going back to Vlad the Impaler. And not an easy task, is it? Nobody on that wall has ridden the bicycle backwards. And yet everyone on that wall, plus the 3/4 that aren't on that wall, that I don't show their picture, have done the equivalent thereof of ridden the bicycle backwards because they have rewired themselves cognitively. See, you can say easily rewire cognitively, can't you? That's easy to say. But to do, and for those of you 2 or 3 that are bright enough to understand what that really means, it's impossible. So that's why you're fucking afraid, because you've processed all this and you know the odds are against you. Even though all the shit's free on the internet and all the scripts are free, you're not bright enough to find the scripts. Everything's free. Everything's free. And if you're not bright enough to find the scripts on the internet, then God help you when you get out in the real world. And you got good reason to gather around Raymond like he was fucking Moses or something. Because you on a sub-rosa level, no, it's a motherfucker. And for those of you that have already been out there, you know it's a motherfucker. Otherwise, you wouldn't be paying again. But you've deluded yourself. Well, maybe second time is the trick. And for some of you, it is. But some of you, the seventh time, the sixth time, the 12th time. And I'm not going to be giving seminars long enough for you to take this fucking thing 7 times. So you know that. So somehow you've told yourself. Somehow you already resigned yourself. But even when you don't rewire yourself cognitively, you can get awful fucking rich. 11 months. Mesa, Arizona. God love him. He showed up just like Raymond. He brought his wife. And his wife sat right over there. And he said it was a motherfucker. And you're going to hear him at least once this week, depending on how you scoop up the information he's going to give you. A fucking wetback Mexican from Mesa, Arizona. No education. Lived in a mobile home park. Mobile home, not park. Mobile home. One year. Any comments about the backward bike? Questions? Yes, sir.
1 year from the workshop, from the seminar, or 1 year in general in his latest year?
He left in August of 2021, and he did his 348 million till July of 2022. Pretty fucking remarkable for a pendejo who can't speak English right. I threw him up in the face of the Goomba brothers. They've only got a half a brain between them anyway. Okay, Fear, last night, the kid, the actor, the well-known actor, who plays Thor in all these scenes. And he's also not 6'5". Now I've met all these guys. And Sally and I were in Hong Kong a few years ago. And, what's the guy's name now? Anyway, his claim to fame when he was young and really super fit, he could crack a walnut in the cheeks of his ass. Crack a walnut. Anyway, I'll think of his name in a second. And he was walking by, and I stopped him, and I said, this is when I was 287 pounds. I was a power lifter then. And I didn't consider it a power lifter, but when you get that big and you lift those kind of weights, you're considered a power lifter. So I stood up and I said, I've been a fan a long time. And he looks up at me. He's 5'4". I was almost a foot taller than he is. And he told Sally, your husband's a big boy. And of course, I've stood next to Schwarzenegger. All these guys are dwarfs. Literally dwarfs. And I watched Creed 3. Is that the one that's out now? And they didn't let, the story is, they didn't let Sylvester Stallone in that movie. And he's the only movie of that series that he's not part of. And he was pissed off about it. But Sylvester Stallone's about 5'5", more or less. And when he said he weighed 205 pounds, he weighed 165 pounds. And that guy, Dolph, the taller guy, if he's 6'4", I'm 7 feet. But that's what you want to believe. It's like Jocko Wacko, my buddy Jocko, retired SEAL, good guy, good shit. One of the reasons he's got one of the most popular podcasts is because they want to be a trained assassin killer, which amuses me a little. And when I was working on I still am working on my TV movie, Boots the Suits, and I asked him for some assistance. He was a very charming guy. I never met him in person, and we had a lot of correspondence. And He is a little guy. He's not very big at all. But in the movie, see, you want to believe these guys are 6'4", and a lot of them are ripped, that, for sure. I'm not taking that away from them. And some even have 8-packs, forget 6-packs. But that in a quarter can't buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks. We only have 2 arguably 6-packs up there on that wall. 2. He's one of them. And Marcus Bauer is one of them. And Marcus Bauer is on a treadmill between 9 and 11 hours a day. And the perfect treadmill speed to walk is 4 kilometers an hour. And he walks at 5% incline. I can't work on a computer at 4 kilometers because I'm not coordinated enough. Believe me, I've tried. So I can only walk at about a little less than 3 kilometers an hour and do work on a treadmill. We're going to tell you what the big guys do before the end of the seminar. What papers they read or don't read, what programs they look at or don't look at, et cetera, et cetera. The favorites are the Succession and Billion for pretty obvious reasons. But, I mean, most of these guys have pudgy guts. And even a lot of the guys that walk on the treadmill 6 to 8 hours a day, like I have almost no fast twitch muscles. All my muscles are slow twitch. I'm not going to explain what that means, but that's part of my uncoordination. And so I can walk on a treadmill 26 hours a day, and I'm not going to get cut. I have permanent baby fat. I weigh about 232 now, and I should weigh 220, but I still have baby fat even at 220, although I got a lot of muscles. We're going to tell you all the stuff. We're going to tell you the sleep patterns of these guys, how much sleep they get or how much sleep they don't get. And most of the guys, like I do, they get up at 3 or 4 in the morning, they work an hour or 2, and then they go back to sleep. You're not going to do that. Not going to happen. If you do wake up, you're going to roll over on that flabby ass that you're sleeping next to. We're going to tell you all that. And that and a quarter will not buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Because none of that matters, but I know you're all interested. It's just like the questions. I mean, a couple of you that I've already seen asked me in very professional ways, are all the classes this stupid? You know who you are when you ask? I said, yeah, pretty much. Plus or minus 10%. What you should have said is, are they all this afraid? They're not stupid. We got some people here with reasonable IQs. Not as high as my IQ, but reasonable IQs. But you're afeared, as they say. Because you're afraid of the unknown, even though fear is false expectations appearing real. I remember him sitting right there. He has 2 questions, and he said, and he's going to tell you in a minute when we listen to him. And all he did was scream at me. And what did Raymond say? Screamed at him. Not just because I've been asked the question 12 million times, because occasionally I think, well, this guy or this gal, maybe they've got this secret sauce in their DNA. When you heard the pig fucker yesterday, and he came with 3 other Irish guys, not together. He was from Belfast. The other 3 Irish guys are from Dublin. Okay? And the one guy who's now done a deal, the guy that looked like an Irish James Bond. I mean, he looked like James Bond. He finally did a deal a couple months ago, and he sent me. I know you've been whipping me because I hadn't heard from the other 3 Irish guys. Occasionally, that guy or that gal may have it. And then I'm disappointed. I don't go into default about it because you can't really pick. You can't really pick. But when you use the psychological test that you've already taken, and then plus this week, I'm about 98 or 98 and a half, 99% accurate who's going to make it and who's not. But I was wrong about this Irish guy. I was wrong. But now he did a deal. But now the key is whether you continue to do deals. I told you yesterday, people say I want to be a billionaire. They make $50 million, and I never hear from them again. Now, I don't want Christmas cards and shit like that, but I mean not a thank you, fuck you, go fuck yourself. What about fear? Could you relate to that fear? And that block, breathing doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. My heart races at about 180 when I'm under the gun pressure, either physical or so. No matter how much I think positively and I try to slow down but I can function at 180. The difference is if you can't function at 180, you're fucked. But I can function at 180. Most people can't. And I had the pleasure of working with Pete Conrad, the third guy to walk on the moon. Terrific guy. He died in a motorcycle accident in Santa Barbara a number of years ago. He slipped on gravel and he went off a cliff. After being to the moon, fuck, good guy, good shit, into Princeton. And he said, we all had a death wish, Mr. Peña. When we went up, we all had a death wish. Some of our death wishes were fulfilled and some weren't. What about fear? Yes, sir.
Mind over everything. Just by thinking thoughts, you can lower your heart rate.
Yeah. Now, I've done that water shit. It's not shit. I call everything shit. So, one way I don't want to die is drowned. The second way I don't want to die is fire. Give me a bullet. Give me that bullet in the head, but not those two ways. My kid brother, who's the number 2 guy at the Los Angeles County Fire Department, he's getting ready to retire. He's not afraid of fire. Okay, I'm not afraid of it, but if I got my pick, fire and drowning are not going to be either one of them. But you can condition yourself. And I told you the thing that you take the least or the most for granted and the least serious is I tell you in your weekly reports and in the material, what did you do to scare yourself today? Almost nobody does it. What did you do to scare yourself today? What did you do to get yourself out of your comfort zone? How did you get closer to being comfortable, being uncomfortable? In the beginning, it's smelling the leather, going to a $10 million house when you don't have $5 in the bank. In the beginning, it's going to the Rolls dealer or the Lamborghini, whatever the fuck it is. In the beginning, and of course, it costs $250 to jump off that building like I did. But some of you don't have $250 to jump off the building, okay? But unless you do that, you are going to be acclimated to getting outside your comfort zone by getting your teeth kicked in the financial world. Raymond did 7 deals before he did the 8th deal that clicked. We've had other guys, I've told you, 25 deals before they clicked. You've heard about Gabriel, 14 deals that fell to shit, then he did 16 in a row. And as he said in the film yesterday, when those 14 deals evaporated, it was a motherfucker. And when you heard him say he fired his chairman the night before his first board meeting, now that takes balls. He's fortunate that the fucking board didn't cut him out of the deal and go forward without him. Now, to me, he's got no leadership skills. But in Switzerland, these cunts, he must have had enough leadership skills to keep the deal going. See, you're afraid of getting cut out of the deal. With 1 or 2 exceptions in here, you got no leadership skills. And making $10 million, which at least one of you has, or at least the paperwork has, says you have, doesn't mean you have any leadership skills. And you know it. And you've processed this already. Okay, YouTube, go fuck yourself.